Good evening and welcome to Twig Radio. For the 13 days counting down to Halloween, we will be reading and telling scary stories, legends, campfire tales, maybe some historical true tales to get us in the spooky spirit. And tonight I'm going to be starting with the story Harold. Harold is a story from the Scary Stories 3 More Tales to Chill Your Bones, collected by Alvin Schwartz, that came out in 1991. It was the third book in the series Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and the story was also featured in the 2019 film Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Probably, I think, because it's a pretty relatable story. It's a story that you could take the plot and change it around a little bit to have to do with bullying and different circumstances. I guess from some research that I did on the story today, Schwartz had originally adapted it from an Austrian-Swiss legend that was a little bit more religious and moral in nature, but still sort of was along the idea that you shouldn't treat anybody or anything badly, or there could be consequences to you. So kind of a traditional fairy tale, I guess, in that way. So without further ado, this is Harold, again from the 1991 collection, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Harold. When it got hot in the valley, Thomas and Alfred drove their cows up to a cool green pasture in the mountains to graze. Usually they stayed there with the cows for 2 months. Then they brought them down to the valley again. The work was easy enough, but oh, was it boring. All day the two men tended their cows. At night they went back to their tiny hut where they lived. They ate supper and worked in the garden and went to sleep, and it was always the same. Then Thomas had an idea that changed everything. "Let's make a doll the size of a man," he said. "It'd be fun to make, and we could put it in the garden to scare away the birds." "It should look like Harold," Alfred said. Harold was a farmer they both hated. They made the doll out of old sacks stuffed with straw. They gave it a pointy nose like Harold's and tiny eyes like his. Then they added dark hair and a twisted frown. Of course, they also gave it Harold's name. Each morning on their way to the pasture, they tied Harold to a pole in the garden to scare away the birds. Each night they brought him inside so he wouldn't get ruined if it rained. When they were feeling playful, they would talk to him. One of them might say, "How are the vegetables growing today, Harold?" Then the other, making believe he was Harold, would answer in a crazy voice, "Very slowly." They would both laugh, but not Harold. Whenever something went wrong, they took it out on Harold. They would curse at him, even kick him or punch him. Sometimes one of them would take the food they were eating, which they were both so sick of, and smear it on the doll's face. "How do you like that stew, Harold?" he would ask. "Well, you better eat it or else." Then the two men would howl with laughter. One night after Thomas had wiped Harold's face with food, Harold grunted. "Did you hear that?" Alfred asked. "It was Harold," Thomas said. "I was watching him when it happened. I can't believe it." "How could he grunt?" Alfred asked. "He's just a sack of straw. It's not possible." "Let's throw him in the fire," said Thomas, "and that will be that." "Let's not do anything stupid," said Alfred. "We don't know what's going on. When we move the cows down, we'll leave him behind. For now, let's just keep an eye on him." So they left Harold sitting in the corner of the hut. They didn't talk to him or take him outside anymore. Now and then the doll grunted, but that was all. After a few days, they decided there was nothing to be afraid of. Maybe a mouse or some insects had gotten inside Harold and were making those sounds. So Thomas and Alfred went back to their old ways. Each morning they put Harold out in the garden, and each night they brought him back to the hut. When they felt playful, they joked with him. When they felt mean, they treated him as badly as ever. Then one night Alfred noticed something that frightened him. "Harold is growing," he said. "I was thinking the same thing," Thomas said. "Maybe it's just our imagination," Alfred replied. "We have been up here in the mountains a long time." The next morning while they were eating, Harold stood up, walked out of the hut. He climbed up on the roof and trotted back and forth like a horse on its hind legs. All day and all night long, he trotted like that. In the morning, Harold climbed down and stood in the far corner of the pasture. The men had no idea what he would do next, and they were afraid. They decided to take the cows down into the valley that same day. When they left, Harold was nowhere in sight. They felt as if they had escaped a great danger and began joking and singing. But when they had gone only a mile or two, they realized that they had forgotten to bring the milking stools. No one wanted to go back for them, but the stools would cost a lot to replace. There's nothing to be afraid of, they told each other. After all, what could a doll do? They drew straws to see which one would go back, and it was Thomas. I'll catch up with you, he said, and Alfred walked on towards the valley. When Alfred came to a rise in the path, he looked back for Thomas. He did not see him anywhere, but he did see Harold. The doll was on the roof of the hut again. As Alfred watched, Harold kneeled and stretched out a bloody skin to dry in the sun. So obviously it ends with somewhat of a gruesome deed by Harold, but you can get that moral and the idea that bullying is not a good thing and that we shouldn't take out our frustrations on others or other things, depending on what you think Harold is. Does it necessarily result in your skin being dried out in the sun? I hope not, but it definitely has got a lesson there. So that was our first story, and we will be back tomorrow to count down number 12. Have a great night, everybody.